Welcome to my presentation explaining my research project, methodology, and importance. My name is Mike DeBarto. I am a retired Army Armor NCO officer and currently a Department of Defense contractor. On September 17, 1862, nearly 130,000 Americans in blue and gray faced each other outside of Sharpsburg, Maryland. By the end of the day, 23,000 of them would be dead, wounded, or missing. Known in the North as the Battle of Antietam, in the South as the Battle of Sharpsburg, the unprecedented number of casualties made it the bloodiest day in American history. According to the Department of Veterans Affairs, as many Americans were killed, wounded, or missing on that day than the total number of casualties suffered by the United States in the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Mexican-American War. Although the Civil War had raged for nearly a year and a half, the sheer number of casualties suffered that day shocked the nation. Even the New York Times, usually willing to write stories with a pro-war, pro-Lincoln slant, reported the carnage on both sides was awful. The question many ask is, what made this battle so bloody? The weapons and equipment used were the same as in other Civil War battles. The terrain was no different. It was fought in good weather, and the armies had the same mix of experienced and inexperienced men and leaders. So what made this battle different? The Battle of Antietam was the bloodiest day in American history because Union commanders at all levels failed to follow basic military doctrine, and this failure was a direct cause of the carnage. The importance of this battle cannot be overestimated. Most historians see it as a tactical draw, but a strategic victory, but most importantly, it gave President Lincoln the victory he needed to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. An early visit to the battlefield to understand the terrain, obtain an overview of the battle, introduce oneself to the park staff, and visit the Park Library and Research Center is crucial, and it is recommended that internet searches should start with the War of the Rebellion before moving on to other sources. Every year, articles, documentaries are published about the Civil War, with one study estimating over 66,000 have been written about the subject. Of these, only a small percentage focus on the Battle of Antietam, and none of these appear to provide a definitive reason for the tremendous number of casualties, with most historians skirting around the subject. But why study this battle? For most of us, the main reason to study history is to satisfy curiosity and enrich our minds. But to make a good historian, that curiosity must be insatiable. But this is not true of professional military leaders. They study history to learn lessons from the past, to save lives in the future, so that it is critical that command decisions that cause unnecessary casualties be identified, documented, taught, and remembered. To discover and provide lessons, the primary methodology used for this study is military history. The Army divides military history into three categories: operational, administrative and technical, and military and society. This study will focus on the operational category that includes combat, logistics, tactics, strategy, and leadership. From studying mistakes commanders made in the past, today's leaders can apply these lessons learned to decisions they make today. And Antietam is a perfect example to provide those lessons. So full of lessons is this battle that the Army has published numerous editions of a staff ride guide to the Battle of Antietam to support their staff ride program, which has a stated purpose of providing military leaders with lessons learned in command and control, leadership, and training. To properly study and analyze a battle through the military history lens, a researcher requires three things: a battlefield, reliable primary sources, and a critical methodology. Regarding terrain analysis, the researcher must visualize what the terrain looked like on the day of the battle, so he must figuratively go back in time. The sunken road is an example of why this is so important, because it looks much different today than it did in 1862. Sources are the next element needed. Fortunately, the Civil War was the first American war where more than just officers were literate. This increase in literacy means that participants and observers left a bottomless archive of primary sources. Lastly, and possibly the most important, the researcher must use analytic rigor to support a critical methodology in order to gather data and use it to critically analyze the battlefield to determine why there were casualties at certain times and locations. Although the best secondary sources rely heavily on primary sources, the researcher must be careful because many times primary sources are incorrect or incomplete, and historians' interpretation of them disagree. So all sources must be treated with caution. Only after this rigorous research and analysis is complete can it be proven that the primary reason for America's bloodiest day was complete failure in command. Only then it can be determined why over 8,000 men were lost fighting over Miller's cornfield, or why nearly 10,000 men became casualties trying to capture the West Woods and the sunken roads, or why it took 3 hours and 620 men to get over the lower bridge when the attackers outnumbered the defenders by 10 to 1. And what were the command decisions that led to another 3,000 casualties in the defeat of the last Union attack when they were on the verge of penetrating the Confederates' rear and a sure victory? Although there has been a tremendous amount of writings and research done on every subject area of the Civil War, something that is lacking is a detailed focus analysis of what the primary reason was for casualties during the battle. This study will fill the void for the Battle of Antietam. Thank you for your time and attention.